Okay, you all set?
Welcome to our town hall. I have never done this before, so bear with me because I'm a little bit nervous.
Sure.
As the charter review committee, we went through our original charter from 95. Section by section, bit by bit, and kind of pulled everything apart with a fine tooth comb and try to put it all back together. We looked at League of Oregon Cities model charter for the structure. It seems to be a really popular guide on how to format the charter. So that is what we looked at quite a bit for inspiration. We had about 4 meetings and they were each about 2.5 hours averaged out over the last 2 months. And I think we put a lot of effort and we did make a lot of changes.
Not verbal change.
Not good. So there's some places where we revised the original section 5, the original charter was really long. We found that we could kind of sum it up in 1 sentence down from 3. Places like section 6, we felt like there wasn't enough clarification in there. So we expanded on what was existing. And most of the time we look for the model charter. A lot of other cities have used the model charter as a structured guide for theirs. And so it feels like we just kind of caught up with everybody else with this.
Can I add one thing?
Please.
Yeah, so, and just keep in mind, the model charter that's produced by LOC, it gets reviewed every year or 2. Because, you know, the nature of governing is that laws change and interpretations of laws change. And then so the LOC takes all that input and then it feeds that into what they consider the most current and accurate and defensible charter for any city in Oregon to adopt. And so it reflects all the changes that may happen when, you know, the voters pass an amendment to our constitution at the state level, and that can feed into what constrictions or authorities a city may have for its charter. And just, you know, to that point, if folks aren't familiar with the charter, a charter is like a city's constitution. So you got the federal level, you got a constitution, that's our document that lays out the authority, the president, Congress, the judiciary. And at the state, you also have constitutions. We're gonna say it's constitution. The cities, we have charters. We're a home rule charter. And that's the document that sets how we govern ourselves, how we pick our council members, how we do vacancies, pick our appointed official, et cetera. And, you know, for what it's worth, ours was last adopted almost 30 years ago. So the voters went and looked at a charter that a former council and staff put together, and probably some members of the community, and they approved that. The only way to change it is by the voters. The voters have the final say on what is in their charter. So we did our best effort to go through ours and keep the things we like from the model, but then a few things like, no, we're not on board with that. We don't think that reflects our values as a community. And so we kept things the same in some cases. So anyway, just a little more context.
Can I have something?
Yes, ma'am.
We didn't just look at the model charter, though. We looked at charters from cities that are really similar to us in size and sort of demographics and constitution, the kind of services those cities provide in terms of how do they deal with power, how do they deal with water? And because we wanted to make sure that we were looking at, you know, well, what did they do? Did they do it different than us? Did they do it the same? We had some parts of our charter that are very different from other charters, and we looked at charters that were very different and charters that were very much the same. Just to make sure that we got a good understanding and basis of other stuff. We looked a lot at the city of Bandon for obvious reasons, or reasons that will become obvious later. That's all I wanted to say.
Marion, want to add anything?
No,
Okay.
I'm fine. You said it all.
So, yeah, so, the structure we're gonna have, we're gonna just give this little overview of what we did and kind of what our product is. We're here until 9, so it's an open house. Folks can come in later, and look at the charter. It doesn't take long to read and ask us questions about how we came to the thing, how we came. And just to be clear, everything is very like, this is our proposal, this is our proposal. The only part that has kind of an option A, option B is, section 32, where it's at.
Yeah.
That was the amendments that was done in 2008. There were two things that the voters voted on. They voted on this tax fee and charge amendment, and they voted on the condemnation.
Old section 32,
New
new
section
section
36.
36.
Thank you. And just for what it's worth, the condemnation piece, we didn't change anything. We left that as the voters adopted in 2008. And for the fees, taxes, and charges, we're making two proposals, and it should be in there. It's a bit wordy, but I'd like you to look at that and you know, certainly give us your feedback on whether either of those resonate with you as a voter.
On the point, on the section where we all get to ask questions, is it gonna be open forum like this, so everyone can hear the question, everyone can hear your answer, rather than everybody?
We were gonna start that way, yes, ma'am.
Good.
And then if we want to break up, then, and sometimes we're gonna pause that and then say, if you want to do one-on-one questions, then we can, you know, dive down deeper, then we're happy to do that. So now let's open up to Q and A.
Yeah, if the committee's done their presentation, we can open it to formal Q and A, and kind of once that kind of wraps up, then we'll end the formal presentation part of it, and then open up to a kind of a general open house.
Thank you, yep.
I have questions.
Yes,
Okay. Fire away.
So you were talking about that section 36, about the, you said amendment, it was a ballot measure. And we are a single subject rule for ballots, and that went subject to the ballot. It seems like that change, that is a ballot measure that passed. It seems like instead of putting that as a separate ballot measure to the voters so they can clearly see what they're voting on, you guys are putting it into this charter revision, and it's being hidden amongst all these other changes. And it's basically trying to tone down about the fees and going to the voters and charges and stuff like that. And you removed the word charges and you just left taxes and fees. You've added a line unless otherwise authorized by city ordinance, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, or other laws. That sounds like it's a catch-all that you're gonna be able to override everything else. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I have to look into it and ask people, but I'm concerned that you're putting this in here instead of a separate ballot measure by itself, so people can see and knowingly vote. Do I want them to come to us for taxes, fees, charges, increases, or can they just do it on their own? They should knowingly know what they're voting for, but you guys putting it in here with all these other changes, grammar changes, structure, paragraph changes, it's hit, and a lot of people don't have time to read the whole thing. They're not gonna know what they're voting on. They're just gonna think a new charter. And this section that was changed in the city council meeting, the mayor and one of the city councils, the first words out of their mouths were repeal, repeal, find out how to repeal it. So if you guys are the charter review committee and you're here for us, the voters, it sounds like this is all the direction of the city council, what you've done here with this. And I'm
So
concerned about that.
absolutely. We haven't decided how it will be voted on yet, is my understanding. We don't know if we're going to present it as one final product. The attorney said that we could present it as a final product or present pieces. So that hasn't been determined
And
yet.
why was the word charges removed?
So what
Creation, increase in taxes, fees, or charges, you guys removed the word charges.
The
Was that
way-
purposeful and why?
the way the attorney described it is that that we don't actually, it wouldn't hold up in court. So there, we don't have the authority for,
Because you remember, the
Starts with
city
an A.
council said, oh, the word rate is not in there, so we can raise any rate we want. Now you guys are removing charges, then if this passes, if people, they're voting on it passes 70 charges, oh, all these, you're gonna start calling everything charges now. And the city, not you guys, the city council is gonna call everything charges, because the word is not here, because they made a point that the word rate wasn't in here.
so what
So it's a big deal that charges is left out
So
of
what
the original ballot.
the attorney has said is that administrative fees and other rates and charges, anything that is administrative in nature, isn't affected by the charter. If we,
Well,
that-
Yeah,
It is.
sorry, I misspoke.
yeah, isn't subject to voter approval.
I'm sure some things aren't, but this is more broad. The ballot measure that passed is more broad. In fact, if it wasn't so broad, why is the city council complaining that they can't raise any fees? They have to take to the voters, but the problem is they never take anything to us to vote on. They complain they can't raise anything, but they don't take anything to us to vote on. They brought the cemetery and they brought the EMS fees. We all voted to pass them and raise them. So the point I'm making is that that word charges is important, and it sounds like, it looks like you guys are, by direction of the council, trying to minimize this and wean it down or completely remove it.
Can I address your concern? I think you're right to be concerned. The entire committee this was probably the most contentious, the most discussed section. We heard a lot from the city attorney about it. As written, the previous council, after it was passed, was informed by the city attorney that it was unenforceable, that it's unconstitutional and it violates the constitution, the statutory regulations that.
It wouldn't have passed, I mean.
Well,
You can pass
challenge
anything.
the court then. We don't know that. We don't know that.
And I'm not upset with you guys.
No, no.
I appreciate the work you're doing. I'm upset with city council.
Well,
As a lawyer.
I want to, but I want to add something.
Right,
Go ahead.
what, so, but we've been at loggerheads. I think there's a real division within the city itself. City council's afraid of blowback from making decisions or increasing rates. People are afraid the city council is gonna do it. Everyone's kind of at this standstill. And it all revolves around this one area of the charter. And it's our job, as we weren't asked to look at just this section. We were asked to look at the entire charter. Unfortunately, this is in here. And
That's the whole reason they wanted you to look at the charter. I was at that meeting, was because of this ballot measure. It came up and they wanted everyone to look into how to repeal it. So now the charter committee came into being. That was the whole reason.
right, in talking about it, we weren't even agreed. That's why there are two different recommendations that we're making to the council. We had to take into consideration what the attorney told us, what they've told the council repeatedly since this amendment was passed as a ballot measure. That it's unenforceable, that the council could, if they wanted to, make any rate increase they wanted. And wait for a lawsuit to come from the people, if the people had the money to push a lawsuit through. And so in us looking at it, we're trying to sort of, I guess, walk that line. We understand and we really agree with the concerns that the people in our community have about the power council has to make rate increases, to make fee increases, that they should be reasonable. And you're right, they should be brought before the elected.
And they're not bringing them to us. I mean, that's their fault that things have increased when they should, you know?
Correct, they've always had that right. But as we go through it, as citizens, we want to make it so that it's easier for them to do it. There's clear rules about it, that the statutes are clear and that everybody knows what the statutes are, that when it comes to administrative charges and fees, if there's an increase in the cost of paper, although Tiffany makes fun of the copy thing that we talk about, that they can just increase it because there's a real increase in paper costs, ink costs, toner costs, repair costs. We want to make that as easy as possible. And that's why this discussion is really important as well, because you help us validate our concerns about this section, is that how do we balance that? There's clear citizen concern about the right council has to do rate increases. At the same time, council has certain statutory rights. How do we balance that? And that's, I just kind of wanted to address that, is that this for us was also.
As a voter, I think I would rather see it as a separate ballot measure, the changes that you're wanting to make, where it shows the before and the after, and everyone votes. Of course, I'm in. But if it
Right.
passed and the voters, wanted it to go away, okay, I would accept it. But this way, if it's done this way, I don't know if I'll ever accept it, because it seems sneaky and hidden. And I think a lot of people are not gonna know what they're voting on.
Well, and that's why we wanted that kind of feedback. This is, is that we will also pass this feedback on to the city council when we present our recommendations. Is the town hall is so that we could get feedback on it, and that we've had people come in and voice the same interest, that it be presented separately. That's all I wanted to say. Bernard.
One thing I want to add, just to be clear, when I was appointed to this committee, I was given no instructions on how to treat this language in the thing. I don't think anybody else was either.
No.
Yeah,
Nope.
no, council did not instruct us to come in here and remove this language or delete it. We were told to review the charter and make our recommendation based on our best, again, our value set, what the model provides, and what comparable cities, what their charter looks like.
And you
that's
guys
the deal.
thought on your own to have the option just to completely remove it?
Yes,
Yes,
I
we
don't
did.
like that language. As a member of this community and the former administrator, I have huge concerns with that language.
Okay.
So, but I'm one guy. Trust me, there were a diversity of opinions about that language, and we had a vigorous conversation.
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for doing this work. It's nothing but hard country as far as. I went through this many years ago. And I think the old charter, we might have been involved in. And when they put that, measure, in there, so that everything had to go to the ballot, I really didn't like it. But what I don't like nowadays is the fact that there's so much inconsistency. Some people want to go to the ballot. Some people just want to turn it over to the council. And either way will work as far as I'm concerned. The most important thing in my mind is that the council represents the people. And I think that's why that was put in there in the first place. Because they felt the council at one point in time was just going off in different directions and not representing the people or the town. And somehow, some way, the council has got to overcome that and act as representatives of the people and get the people back on their side.
And listen to us.
Or this is just, no matter what you do, it won't work. That's my piece on it. Please, let's have some consistency. And once again, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Well,
Brittany?
So I will say that I was at every one of these meetings, and this section itself took up one whole meeting, and there was some good discussion. I was the citizen being the sounding things off, because over this past year, we've had a contentious fee raise on our garbage service. And it was discovered, through this process, that probably should have gone to the vote of the citizens. So I can understand the angst that people have, because now we're just gonna relabel everything to not be, or to be fees or taxes, or not be fees or taxes. And I kept bringing up continually the fire EMS fee that we have on our utility bills, which is up for a vote at the end of the year, and I kept pressing them. That has to keep coming before the citizens for a vote, because that was something we voted on originally. We're gonna be voting on an increase, I'm sure, because nothing is going the opposite direction this year. So I kept saying, but, what about this? So I was kind of like the little nag in their ear, trying to get them to think in different directions. And I mean, kudos, because this was a huge undertaking. You think it's just a simple little easy little thing to do. And I mean, it's not. You have to go through and justify every action that you do. But at the same time, I can understand the concern about this one section. So, because and they did allow me to speak even though I was not part of the committee, so I really felt like I was allowed to get some input in there. And you guys should mention that you do have another meeting.
Yes.
On the 19th, I think it is.
Oh, okay, okay, got it.
For the final discussion, so if people wanna come.
And I also want to say Tiffany is not the only person who graced us with their presence, gave generously of their time to come to our meetings and tell us.
Sorry.
We heard from Dan, was that his name, the guy who helped pass that out?
Gary.
Yeah.
Gary came and
Who
spoke
was
to
the
us.
petitioner behind the 2008 amendment.
Tom Cramlett came, we got some history, some background, some context, not just for that section, but for sort of citizens' relationship with council, and we, for example, didn't know why the condemnation thing was in there. We found out about that. We found out about a lot of different things. It was very informative. I was really impressed by the number of people who gave up 2 or 3 hours of their time to come and sit with us and hash through different parts of this charter, including Tiffany, who was more than happy to look up statutes when we were trying to figure out, is this in the statutes? Do we need it in our charter if it's in the statutes? It is in the statutes. Should it be in the charter as well? Those kind of questions.
You did bring up one more point, about some of the verbiage in section 36. Qualified electors unless otherwise authorized by city ordinance, the Constitution of the state of Oregon or other law of the state of Oregon. So that was put in there, basically saying that any state statute supersedes what we would put in our charter.
Yeah.
That's all that means, that we will function in as broad of an area as we can, but we are still confined by state statutes. Just want to kind of circle back to mention that.
One other comment on this, it wasn't just the city attorney who was saying that what was adopted by the voters in 2008 was challengeable. If you go to the model LOC, they have these footnotes, so they propose, they have, recommended language for resolutions, ordinance, et cetera. And then they have footnotes, they talk through, what's that based on? And, when they talk about resolutions and ordinance and administrative authority, according to LOC, the Oregon Constitution, Article 4, Section 1, subsection 5, gives voters initiative and referendum powers over municipal legislation, but not municipal administration. So, and what we also confirmed is that when council passed the resolution, that's by definition an administrative act. But when it passes an ordinance, that's when the voters can come in and disagree, or challenge the validity of that legislation. So, and if you know anything about all our fees, charges, and rates, it's all done by resolution, unless you're establishing something new, and that might require an ordinance. So both of those things were informing this conversation about how this language should read.
To be fair, this new fee that we got put on our trash can was passed by resolution.
Yeah, again, and I could see that was a gray area that I think potentially someone could challenge. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but the original measure said any increase in tax fees or charges, even if there's an ordinance or resolution, has to go to the voters. Even if the ordinance or resolution already has, it has to go to the voters. So that's what I'm thinking. I don't know why you're making such a differential Maybe I'm not getting
It's
it.
in the statutes, that's why, the statutes say that council. People don't have to vote if it's a resolution, only if it's
Or it's
an ordinance.
administrative in nature, is what resolutions do.
Did you guys
That's-
change
that's the
any
Constitution.
duties of any of the council, mayor, council?
I don't believe so.
I would suggest changing a specific duty of the mayor. I mean, appointing the committee is fine, that's fine. But the charter review committee is supposed to be by the voters. And when you have a mayor that's presented applications and they can decide which applications to give to the council and hold some back, that's one person's bias that's not serving all the voters, and people are being left out that could have been on this charter review committee. I would suggest, I don't know what other voters want, they can put their input in, that one committee, the charter review committee, is not appointed by the mayor. The applicants go straight to the council and they review them and they appoint them by a vote. Whatever they do with their majority, whatever, however that works. Because I think the voters are not being served the best by having this the mayor position be able to make that decision.
The more inclusive you are of the citizens, the more they're apt to participate. As you can see, we really don't have a lot of people here. And that's a shame, isn't it? Now we have 1,600 now.
Because you go to
We
the
got
city
what,
council
15
meetings,
here, folks.
you go to the city council meetings and you feel like you're talking to a wall, like it goes in one ear and out the other, and they don't care. It's like they're hearing you, that some of them listen and care, but most, it's like, what's the point? They're not paying, they don't care, they're not paying, they're gonna do whatever they want anyway. This is why some of us are upset.
One time I saw this room full. The only time in like 20 years that I've come in on occasion. And that night, we were trying to raise rates for, the West End. For the electricity going on out to, on a falls. and- Yeah, you were here at the time. And this room, you couldn't even get into the room. There were people standing out in the hall. And so people care, but if they're not included, they're just gonna drop on the wayside, because they don't think their thoughts will be taken into consideration.
That could be the city council's plan.
Well, it seems that way, but I really don't believe
I
it.
hope not. I hope not.
So something you guys haven't mentioned that changed from 32, 36, was the removing the restriction that it be in a even year requiring a 50%
Oh, yeah.
double majority on there, which basically made it very difficult to get things passed. So that is another change that I don't know if you guys want to address.
I was wondering why that was removed too. I thought, why they take that away?
And I personally don't think that I don't feel that it's a bad thing, because it was very restrictive and made it very, very, very difficult to get things on the ballot. to
Yeah,
be
it meant that
passed.
we would have to wait 2 years, basically. Every 2 years, we're allowed to vote on any new increases or rates or charges. So by removing it, we don't have that restriction. You could vote any year during a primary election, during a general election.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And then you would need 50% of voters' approval, and
Right.
I mean, really, what's our voter turnout?
Yeah.
Right.
like 30,
Hard to get the
30%.
50%.
Yeah.
So it's like we become ungoverned.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Very low. It's going. Okay, I have a ton more questions.
Throw them out there.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
No.
Why we're here.
Well, I haven't read the whole thing. I just only like went through it really quick. I'll read everything before your next charter. Okay, I'll try to cover that.
Please.
I already talked about the charter review committee appointments, if you move that to council, hopefully, if that could be done. The municipal judge. I don't know how our judge, so the new charter says it's appointed by the council. Has that always been the case?
Mhm.
Our old charter doesn't specifically say that, so I didn't know how
Yeah,
all the judges and all the other They're elected, so
So
I'm concerned that our
we,
council.
No.
we didn't change much, we just put it into, we broke it up into smaller sections.
Did we never voted on our agenda?
17.
Yeah, so the original from the
Chapter
old
4.
charter was section 22, and it's
Now, so
almost half a page.
Yeah, but we just had a Hood River County thing where we voted on all these judges. And they were
This is not-
elected, so I'm.
Okay.
This is
Marianne.
different, yeah.
Okay, the municipal judge is different. The community and Hood River vote on the judge that sits down there. That is the judge you vote on. The city gets any of those judges that will come and be our municipal judge here at City Hall. For violations of ordinances, any violations that require a judge to sit in. A lot of them are ordinance related or penalties or anything like that. That is totally separate than the judge down there. So what we do is we get a judge from our county, anybody that wants to do it, and then we get that judge.
And then the council appoints them.
We
And
find
have
the
our
judges
very
that
own
we
judge.
want, and then, you know, cause some of the judges don't have time
don't want to.
and don't wanna come here. So, we find a judge that wants to be our judicial judge. We bring it to council, they approve it, and that is our judicial judge.
Cool, okay.
And
I
only
just
for the
didn't know
things that we need, it's not every Thursday or every year, it's just whenever we have
Didn't you
something.
say hardly ever happens? Hardly ever do we need a municipal judge.
Well, so that's good that you put that in there because the other charter wasn't real clear, because I was looking at the old charter and I thought, well, they don't say appoint or elect, so.
No, it's
Now you're
appointed,
making it clear.
yeah, it's appointed.
Okay.
And we took this from another
We took that
model, right?
yes, from the LLC, I think.
I think so too.
And then section 32, chapter 7. Section 32, page 7 of 8. Emergency awareness.
From your old one, which charter are you in?
New,
I'm on the new one.
Okay, thank you.
Page 7, emergency warnings. It's not like a big thing, but I'm just wondering, so to meet a public emergency affecting life, health, property. Affecting versus endangering, so affecting is more inclusive, what kind of, is that too broad, or should it be something like endangering life, health, or property?
I don't think you would need to be endangered to be an emergency necessarily.
So what
So
would,
this-
because affecting seems so broad, what kind of stuff would that, like, so now what could the city, what kind of emergency ordinance, I guess COVID would have been.
Do you remember, did we draw this from the model?
Yes, we got it from, I wanna say Hood River.
We hold it from another chart.
I don't think it was in the model.
And they could do an emergency ordinance. or-
Find it.
I don't know.
So that verbiage came straight from Hood River County Charter, Home Rule Charter. We saw that in there and thought it would be nice to have it into ours, to have it.
Probably not that.
For
important.
emergency situation.
Yeah.
You
You just wonder why affecting and not endangering, right?
Yeah, I was wondering why I said affecting instead of not in danger.
Because that's what.
Because
that's what
emergency.
the
language of the
They're in
experts.
danger, not that you're gonna die, but danger or, you know, but affecting, anything can affect, a raindrop can affect me.
Oh, we just pulled it from another chart. That's why it's affecting and not endangering.
Seems
Yeah,
too
I mean,
broad.
something we can look at.
I'm worried about city going willy-nilly on.
Yeah, I think that would, if they took that authority and applied it to a non-public emergency, then I think that's a very challengeable, you know, someone, so, look, there's not an emergency, why are they passing an ordinance or trying to adopt an emergency ordinance when there is no emergency?
That's a good point.
So, that's supposed to be, it sits, all this live health property sits within a public emergency. So like a massive, I don't know, a hurricane or something really incredible hits us, we need some unique powers to respond to that. That's when this ordinance gets put into place.
We've been in that situation with Eagle Creek Fire. There could be
Two
a,
forest fires.
yeah,
Yeah, we've had two, yeah, in the last less than 20 years. But endangering, affecting, I mean, we can take a second look at.
Mhm.
I mean,
better.
endangers to it. I'm just trying to think of something like, other than affecting, because I thought affecting was like so broad, like, well, they could do anything now. The distrust I have of the city council.
But I think, when we were talking about it, when that wasn't any sort of official stance, and wasn't the thought process that the mayor would have to declare an emergency
Yeah,
prior
right.
to being able to create an emergency ordinance?
Usually that's the case.
Does it say that anywhere?
It doesn't say that, but that's typically what precedes a type of, an action, a legislative action by the.
Should it say that somewhere then?
To me,
I mean, that's something to consider. We'll look at it. That's work. Yeah.
Oh, there's one last thing. I think since the city's worried about fees and stuff and the voters, this is our constitution. I would hate that we have to keep voting on a charter change all the time. On section 23, page 4, under elections, under nominations. I'm wondering why you guys actually put an amount in the filing fee, because won't that filing fee change over time, and then we constantly be doing our charter and going to the voters? Wouldn't you rather just have some filing fee set by whatever it is at that time or something, and then if it changes outside the charter?
That's the one.
So we talked about that.
We talked about it a lot.
So you would need an ordinance for that.
right,
We decided that our recommendation for council for that particular section would be for them to create an ordinance for the filing fee. And after that ordinance is created, they can then create another charter review committee and be able to remove that little section.
So then we just have to vote on it again, and I hate us messing with our
Is that
charter
wrong?
so much. I don't think that fee should be in there, I think you should say just a
the
filing
ordinance
fee.
didn't exist, but
No, if I'm understanding right, this has to be done by resolution.
Resolution, begs the wrong word.
Because that allows council to increase this fee. If it's under ordinance, if ordinances don't have fees on them, only resolutions have fees.
Yeah,
as far
but if
as-
we put a fee here.
That fee
you
has,
didn't- For the city,
this fee has been in this ordinance for many years.
Yeah.
it says $20?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's in our 1995.
it's in the old charter too,
It's in the
It's not gonna
current
change
charter.
over time?
but it hasn't because it's in the charter. And we brought it to Jordan that we believe that it needs to be taken out of the charter. And it needs to be done in the proper way, whether it be ordinance or resolution. If we take it out of here now, you have nothing. To charge anything for this upcoming election. Okay, I mean, you don't wanna take this out. Until you have,
resolution in
Oh, I
place.
see it in the old one, it is there.
you don't wanna take this out until you have something else in.
Right.
Got it.
In play, thank you.
Jordan?
I got it.
The LLC model recommends that this entire section of elections
Important.
is an ordinance, not even in the charter.
Correct. I was looking for that. and
Yes.
That's exactly.
So, and that does not exist. We have to have something in writing somewhere, and this, we're gonna keep it, we're proposing to keep it there. In terms of the $20, that is creating a new fee that currently does not exist, which needs to go to a vote of the people. So it's already created in this document, so we're gonna leave it here for now until we can get the process correct.
The fee exists in here.
Correct, it's not in a resolution.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
You got,
Yeah.
So that,
I'm sorry.
so we are recommending to the council that they pass an ordinance or a resolution that has this language in it, so that this can be removed from the charter.
and the voter, the people would vote this new fee.
It's like a 4-step shuffle.
Yeah.
One up,
It is.
two left, one back.
Got it.
And that's why it had to stay in here, but we're asking council to fix that, but we can't take this out yet.
And then that would only be voted on just this one section, correct? You
I would
do the whole-
assume
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So,
It would be an amendment to the charter.
Basically.
Yeah. And that's the kind of sort of legalese nitpicking we've been having to do through as we go through various sections. I can't remember what section we ended up getting sidetracked on, like
That and, that one, and.
And so if I can suggest that if that is going to be something that's gonna be voted out, that maybe it should be put at the end of this section, chapter 5, so that when it gets removed, you don't have a gap of. We go from.
So you're saying move it to miscellaneous?
All 23 gone. And
So you're saying, you're saying move it to miscellaneous, or just to move it to the end of that chapter?
Move it to 27.
Yeah, move it to the end of the chapter so that if it gets.
It'd be 20.
20, 28,
Then your consistency of numbers.
20, whatever it is.
You still have to change the.
Well,
ones
it's
in
which
the fall
section?
chapters.
So right now it's 28.
But all the section of nomination would go away, right? Because it talks about a person qualified to serve on city council, but it's the next section, blah, blah, blah. Would that be? Procedure?
Right.
The LLC model states that the nomination process is set for the end.
Yeah.
I would suggest a sentence like that would be left in the chart.
Okay. Good sentence.
Okay, at least if I was interpreting that. correctly.
You would say that,
That's a good recommendation.
that
To be determined by.
to be determined by the ordinance, you just take out that, but keep that,
Number.
Correct.
keep the number with just that little notation
Yes.
that it's in order.
That's how I interpret that.
I get it.
I missed that conversation.
Well, you would leave it here, but you would say
To be determined by ordinance.
to be determined as with an ordinance. That way, that way that, you know, and everybody knows it's been covered. And you just go to the ordinance to find the rules.
That makes it really clear.
Well,
So you're saying eliminate it, is that what you're saying? Say that by ordinance?
Well, they have to vote on somebody to vote.
Yeah.
It's so hard to find ordinances. I think you guys should leave the instructions in there. But if you're gonna remove, just remove the amount of the filings and say payment of filing fee, see ordinance. And don't put an amount in here, but I like having what it takes, like the nominations, a person qualified to contact the city, you try to get an ordinance, you have to know when it passed, what the ordinance number is, what it says. It's like there's no filing system here that has a table of contents to find anything. So that's gonna be hard on the voters to find out the procedure for nomination. I think just the filing fee, once you do your shuffle, just the amount should be removed and just say a filing fee. And if they wanna know the amounts, they see ordinance.
Definitely a discussion.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
We're-
discussion.
We're gonna fill upon playing, we can, okay.
I'd try to get copies.
No, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too. I don't know why I have, sorry, everybody, I know I have a lot.
Thank you for your comment. Do you have anything to say?
Anybody else? Anything?
The meeting, the next meeting is when?
June 13th at 6.
Here, 15.
Yep.
And then council's gonna discuss charter, not this first,
Be on
but
that.
the second Monday. City council.
Not a test.
The fourth Monday, June 24th, is our goal for this committee to present it in front of the council. It'll probably be a meeting in July with, if council decides to move forward with an ordinance to approve it and put it on the ballot.
So do we, the public, come to that one on the 24th, would we have a say, or do we wait until after that, the next one in
No,
July?
you can come to that one. Any topic on an agenda has a public speaking comment to it. As long as it's an item on the agenda, you can make a comment.
It was explained to me that we present this to city council. And it's up to the city council to decide what they're going to put to a vote. They don't have to take any of our recommendations. This is all just recommendations and they'll get to do with it what they will.
We have no power.
But that, I mean, whatever they want to do, that still has to go to a vote. You know, people still get to vote on it.
Yeah, shall be interesting to see what is accepted and is not, what is accepted. We'll be watching.
So nice to see so many people here, though.
No, I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah, but there should be more.
Yeah. Well, is that the end of our formal
Nobody
everything?
else has
Yeah.
any questions?
Yeah.
Okay,
We appreciate everybody coming.
yes, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go and end the Zoom meeting and the recording.
No one came up on Zoom.
No one, Joe?
Just Janice,
Hey,
Does
Janice.
she have any questions?
I haven't seen anything. Janice, you're on the spotlight. Got any questions?
No, I was just listening. Thank you.
Don't guess them.
Mike said he thought.
No, if you're
Oh,
talking, Janice, we
I'm
can't
sorry.
hear you.
Could you not hear me? How about now?
Trying to step away.
I'll reach out to her, make sure she didn't have any comments.
Okay,
Perfect.
Okay,
all right.
no questions. Okay.